Hi, welcome to GOCCOPRO UK. What we wanted to do today was show you the setup of a QS200. We'll build a video that goes right through the complete setup, so if you buy one remotely, you know the right way to put things together. So what we've done is we've unboxed this machine. To be honest, it's our machine we've had for a wee while, but when you pretty much unbox it, it'll come out like this, and there'll be a securing nut in the back here, and all you do is you just unscrew this pin which locks the travel of the head, and it's important for transport that you always lock that up. And once you get this, there's a space conveniently left on the end, so you just leave that in. There will be an acetate sheet on your bed, and you get a magnetic strip for holding your frames in. So you take off your magnetic strip, your acetate strip, and that's about all you need to do at this stage. When you first switch the machine on, everything will return to the start position. So what we'll do now is we'll stop, we're going to turn the machine around, and then we'll go to installing the software, and we'll follow up from that, but we'll get the machine and everything set up now that we've just shown how to take the pin out and all the rest of it. Hi, so we're back now. We've turned the machine around, and this is the end, and on the end here we've just got an on switch and a lead, your USB leads. So basically the machine comes with a transformer and a power supply which you just plug into the end. It goes with a flat side up. A USB goes from your computer. Now again, sometimes you would plug this in now. I tend to plug them in right away, probably wrong. Other times you would install your software on your machine before you do that. We're not going to go through the installing of the software. It comes on a CD. You can download it from the GOCCOPRO forum, which if you don't have, give us a call, drop us an email, we can send you a link and you can get it. If your machine doesn't have a CD drive, that's fine. But it'll be installed in either Mac or Windows or PC. And in there there's a pretty comprehensive installation guide. It is really easy to install. It doesn't take much at all. Just like installing any basic printer, because this is all this is. It's really just a slave printer. And when you first switch your machine on, it should power up. It's got a little screen on the top that tells you things, and you hear it moving around. And what this machine should do is it returns to its home position. And basically what we're going to do now is we're going to give you a wee bit background story behind things. We'll stop the camera again and we'll take a cover off and show you just the main gubbins underneath the machine. Basically what I've done is this panel sits on here, and I've just taken this off to try and give you the benefit of give you a little bit of explanation of how the QS200 works. And that way, if you understand things, it'll be maybe easier to understand what it's doing during operation. Graham, could you possibly just come over and we'll just swing this machine round a little bit? Just the whole thing will move round a little bit. That's fine. Okay, so basically what happens is this head moves along and it runs on a couple of poles underneath. It's always quite good if you keep the machine clean and tidy. It's better if it's more office space rather than right beside dusty, messy print, because the dust and that will settle on it and that can give you problems. I know an awful lot of people, there's not an off-the-shelf item, but they actually get a sheet sewn up so that they actually have a cover for the machine. There's not an official one, but people do make them, and it's probably not a bad idea if the machine's going to lie empty for a wee while. So there's a couple of big rods that go along either side, much like this one here, and basically what happens is the machine can travel back and forward on these rods, burning the screen. This here item is the thermal head. That's the bit that burns your masters. And what happens is it will come down onto your screen, and basically it will do one channel 4 inches wide. Then the machine will come back. This head will move along 4 inches, and then it goes down again and burns the next channel, and that's how it burns your screen. It burns it in bars down the master. So it's important to remember that, and there's certain adjustments you can make which we'll show you, where you can change the overlap and all the rest of it, and we'll show you how to do some adjustments as well, because you want always it to start in the right place. Sometimes when it comes back, if the alignment would be out, you'll find that it will offset your print or your image onto the screen. I have to say, we have had this machine for 5 years or so. We use it every day and we never adjust it. It works brilliantly. It will only become a problem if for some reason you drop it off the bench. It's a big chunky machine, I'm sure you're not going to do that. Once it's set up in the first place, you don't really need to adjust it very much. You can check it from time to time, make sure it's okay, and if you're doing very high precision stuff, you might want to check it more often. We tend not to bother because it just works. It's great. So that's pretty much the story behind that, and we'll put the panel back on now and we'll show you how to adjust various other bits and pieces. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a little bit of instruction about frames and setup and things like that. So here we've got our one of our frames. This is a quick frame B, which is we use a rubber bead to put the screen into, to tension the screen in the frame. And we're going to link another couple of videos together, we've already done them before, that show how to stretch these frames, so there's no need to do it in this video. But the important things to remember about this machine is it will not print 80mm. You need an 80mm gap here, here, here and here. So if you measure your outside size of this frame and then you take off 80 and 80, that gives your maximum width for image area, and the same in this direction. And the machine has certain limitations depending on the size, but pretty much that's the story for fitting in a large image into the frame. If you put the frame in, whatever the outside dimension is, you're having to take off 160mm for your image size. Now, you can print smaller, that's not really a problem, and you can print something in this corner. You could then take the frame out and print something in this corner. You can turn the frames around. None of that's a problem, so you can print a small image. You can stick it right in the centre if you want. But for most economical use of your master material, you kind of want to get the right frame for the right size of image that you're going to produce. But regardless of the size of frame, you're always going to have to take off 180 and 160mm across the length and across the width. That's so that the head doesn't bash into the frame and cause you any problems. So when you're putting your frame in, you always put the master material, the rougher side goes into the pit, as it were. So it goes into the recess section. And the shiny side, which is the side with the coating on it, and what this machine does is it melts the coating, so the shiny side is always on the top. So if we look at this frame, the master material is sitting flush with the top of the frame. And what we do is we just put this in. I'll slide this head along. And on the back panel here, this is the registration panel. There are two pins, one either end, which you'll not see very clearly, but there are two pins, and basically what you do is you make sure your frame touches both of the pins, and then you slide it across, because there's one pin here on the side. So it's a 3-point contact. You want it to touch this one, and this one. That means that it's always sitting at the right angle for the machine, and as long as you do that each time, if you're trying to get perfect registration, the machine will always start in the same point, it will always finish at the same point, and if you always pull your frame right into this corner, making sure that it's flat along there, it'll always have the image right in the center, which is pretty cool. So what we can do is we pull this back, and when we send our image, what it'll do is off it'll go, and depending on how you have set your frames up, sorry I meant to message, we get a magnetic right angled bracket which just goes on and holds our frame tight against the edge. That just makes sure nothing's going to move around. What we need to do to make this, because it's all digital, we need to register every frame size we have in the print software so that it then knows where the image is to start and stop. So that's important, and we're going to get to that a little bit later when we get into the software. The next thing that we will see when we're talking about printing and quality, this top layer is the shiny side, and that's what we're going to melt away the coating. Now, this machine here has a 4-inch thermal head, which we saw earlier on. When we first switch on, it comes down, touches the master material, and slides along the master material. This master material is nylon and plastic coatings, if you like, and what it does is attracts static. So if you stand there and rub this with an polyester wiping rag or something, you're going to build up electricity in the frame, and you're going to build up static electricity. The one thing you have to be careful with this machine is getting dust and muck on top of it as you print. So basically, when you put your screens in, you want to wipe them with a lint-free, non-static cloth. You can check and see if there's any dust or muck on them. And what you also want to do, and you can feel just under the edge before you put it in, is maybe wipe the head every now and then, just to make sure that it's all away. But this is an advantage if you don't have the machine in a dusty environment. If you are going to print a big block solid, just a couple of words or something, the machine will do that quite comfortably because it's heating up the thermal head to take out a large chunk area of an image. If you're going to print some really fine detail and some lovely halftone and some fine lines, what you're doing is you're getting a tiny thermal head to heat up at that moment in time to melt the coating in a very fine hole. But if you've got a big chunk of dust or a fluff sitting on there, that will create a problem. So clear it off, make sure there's nothing dusty lying around, and you'll get brilliant prints. If you're manky and you leave the place lying around, manky being a Scottish word for dirty, then you'll have problems. The other thing you can do, and you can make it a standard setting on your machine, is you can ask it to burn your screen. Don't move anything, look at your screen, and if it's got a wee part where you think, oh, there was a bit of dust there that's not burnt away, you can go onto the menu and ask it to reprint, or you can just send it again. I mean, we're talking about a minute and a half, and you'll get to see where there's marks. The other thing you can do in the software is you can set it up to print twice. So it will go over each area and it will do it twice. Now remember, this is a digital high precision machine, so it's going to burn holes in a particular point that's been told by your artwork. If you ask it to do it again, it's going to burn that hole in the exact same place every time. That's what's so brilliant about them. They really are very accurate. So if you ask it to burn it 2 or 3 times, it will not make an enormous difference to the end result. It may slightly open up a tiny hole a little bit further because you're adding a little bit more heat to that, but generally it's going to just go over the exact same place and burn your holes in the right place. If you're going to do a big heavy solid image, again, we often would say, well, ask it to burn it twice, so you make sure that everything's completely burned away beautifully. If you're going to do a nice fine detail, send it through once, don't let it do twice. So these are wee little tips, and there's various other tips we can give you if you've got intricate artwork that need things done. But for just now, the important thing, keep it clean, keep it dust free, give it a wipe before you do it. The higher precision item you want, the more attention to that detail you need to pay. Again, we're not talking a lot of time. This is a quick machine, so it doesn't take much time to set things up and print them, and maybe asking it to print a second layer over the screen will not take very long, and it'll be quite good. So that's the main part that we've got there, where we've set our screen in place. The machine will automatically adjust for the height of frame that you've got, so you don't need to worry too much about that. You can position your artwork in different places on that screen, which we would do digitally rather than asking the machine to do it, because pretty much it's always going to work from the starting point right here, which is at 80mm and 80mm. That's the starting point every single time. Sorry if you're wanting me to know about inches, but I'm a millimetre guy. We'll now zoom in on the menu here to show you some other details. Just before I go, what we are going to do when you're doing your setup, this is a roll of thermal paper. It's like old fax paper, it's heat sensitive, so it's white and it gets black when you apply heat to it. What we're going to do is we're going to set that up on this frame, and we're going to put it across, and we will do a test print which will show the alignment of the heads, and that can show you how you can adjust them, and we'll give you some more information about that. The other good thing about this is, if you are constantly burning things, little debris and bits can get attached to the thermal head. I'll be honest with you, we've not really had much problem at all. We don't really get anything like that. We keep it clean and we run with it. We don't really have any problem. Again, if you leave it in a mess and you're not caring about it, you may have, or if you stick in something that's got stickiness on it, that'll give you a problem. As long as your screens are sweet and clean when they go in, the machine will have no problem. But if you get any little marks on your thermal head and you run it over this as a test print, the chemicals that are in here that cause the heat changing, colour changing effect can slightly cream the head. They're slightly abrasive and they can just clean the head as well. So if you're getting a constant line, or you've got something, you may have got something trapped on your thermal head, print over this a couple of times. It's not going to affect your screen, it will just burn away, colour up your image, and it'll just maybe tidy up your thermal head and make it beautiful again. I'm telling you all the detail, but we really don't do much of that at all. These machines just work pretty good. So we'll click off and then we'll zoom in on the menu that's here. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken our frame and we've taped a large section of the thermal paper across our frame, and we've just gone the whole way back and forward. This master, or this material, which we supply with a QS200, has the coated side. The reactionary side is the outside of the roll. So when you put it on, you make sure that the outside is shown. I hope I've got that right. Anyway, so what we're now going to do is we will use the on-screen, or the keypad here, to do a test print, and we'll see how our lines come out. So we've just pulled up a little piece of artwork which is in Photoshop Elements, just a very basic little piece of software, and we'll just go to print. You'll already have installed your print driver software and everything by now. So when you get to here, we just go to page setup, and what we'll need to do is we'll need to set up some specific pages. This is in a Mac, so you set up your page sizes relative to your frames in one way, and on a PC you do them in a slightly different way. The instructions are all in the manual and they're quite easy to follow, but on a Mac, we'll come to that later. What we'll do just now is we'll just go through setting this up to print. So we're going to use a 5878 and we're going to have it tall, and we just go OK. So that's it now set up. We're already set here for a QS200. There's not a lot of things you would mess about with in this software. It's again, you kind of set it up and you just run with it. You don't need to do too many alterations. So if we go to print, the next page you get is the print preview page, and here you can set up various different things. This is telling me that it's going to pass once. If you'll remember from before, we may have been wanting it to go and do a pass twice. Sorry. This is the print preview pane, and this is the next level where we dial in the information that we need to send to the printer. We have already set up a preset of once, and we've got a twice as well, so we've set up a two different ones, and I'll show you how to set one of these up on a Mac. So if we go into our layout and we come down to settings, we then get, I don't know if maybe can you see all that clear enough, or maybe we need to zoom in a little bit on that. So basically what this is telling us is we've got this set in the middle for everything. The machine's running fine, we don't need to adjust it. This is density, we can increase that, it'll burn out the holes a bit bigger. We've got the writing speed we put to A. We've decided that these are the best sort of settings to have this running at, and we would kind of advise any of our customers to do the same thing. This is the speed. They can run across very quick or a little bit slower, and we've decided that A is the best speed to run across the press. The next one is repeat writing, and we've got this set to normal, but if you want, you can have it so that it automatically burns the screen twice or 3 times or 4 times. Just now we've got this set to once, but we do have another preset that is set for twice, and that's where we just change that up here if we know we've got an image that we want to do twice. As I said before, a big block solid, something like that. Line enhancement we just leave to off, there's no need to bother about it. The overlap, as I said to you earlier on, this has channels that run up and down the machine. The head runs up and down, and this has got a 2-dot overlap, so that it's going to make sure there's no white lines between the image. It's going to overlap by 2 dots, and that's how good this is, the precision of the machine. We can inverse on or off. Well, that we have that set automatically just for this machine. The next one we will go to is image setting, and we again have set this up preset so that we just leave it this all the time. We have the screen frequency set to 60, and we have the angle set to 45, and we leave it at dot screen frequency. There's other ones that are here, but we tend not to change it because they don't always give us very good results. This kind of just works for everything that we do, and pretty much this is, we set this up for nice photographic or half-tone work, so therefore we know if it does that, it will do basic black and white without any problem, and it will do the half-tone work as well. Then the next one down is options, and this is where we come to our test prints. We've got test print 1A rather, and it's telling you the size that it kind of wants, and test print 2, and it's saying the width needs to be 580. Well, we put on a 580 frame, so that's fine, and it's going to use a distance down. It talks about the height, that's the length it travels down the screen, is going to be 360, and then there's a test print C. We're actually going to use test print B just now to print out and test our head alignment for each channel that runs down the master. Lastly, there's about, which just tells you the version of software that we're working with. So that's it. Once you get to this and you've set all these options on a Mac, you would then just go here and you could actually save as a preset. And when you hit that, it gives you an option to give it a name and save it. And it also gives you the option to make it for this printer only, so when you call up that printer and you're going to use that printer, that's what it does. So here we can easily save all these same things and put burn twice, and it means that we don't need to go through all of these options when we come back to the machine. We can just select once or twice, and that's us done. You can have as many different presets as you want, and if you find that you've got lots of other things that you want to set up and change the settings for, make it more grainy, make it not as fine detail, you can easily do that by reducing the resolution and reducing the angle, changing the angle. And if you're going to do 4-color work, we certainly want to change the angle, so you could set up different presets for each of these items. All nice and easy. So now we've done that, that's pretty much explains it, and we would just go to print and it'll print that job. I'm not going to print that job, I'm going to go test print B. So we'll do that and we'll go to the machine, which should be online, and it should start printing the test print. So it's told me that the information is transferred. And we're hoping that it's going to be transferred. Perhaps it's not. So here you can see it's printing the line test, and it will do it in 4 lanes because that's the maximum that the machine prints. So this is always the part of the video that's a bit like watching paint dry, as we decide if it's working okay or not. So that's it now, printed our test print, and what we'll do is we'll just pull this out and we'll have a wee look at it. Oh, I'm not going to manage this very well. Can I ask Graham to zoom in perhaps on this area here, if he can line the camera up. So basically what we've got is, this is lane 1, can we see that, is that okay? And what it does is it shows you the very edge of lane 1 and the overlapping pattern. And also that means that because this is the very edge, we can see these lines here and they're running through. Now there's maybe a wee wobble in there, but you know, I wouldn't worry about that. That's pretty close to what's going on. Then I'm not sure again if we can go along. Then we've got lane 2 with your lines, lane 3 and lane 4. And in each of these instances we can see that they're pretty sharp, the lines are running straight through, and we don't see any overlappy big thick black lines in here. They're all quite nice and uniform. It also tells us on here that you've got X position for lane 3 and the Y position. So the Y position is this way and the X position is this way. So it allows us and tells us what we needed to do. So if we thought that there was a little bit of a imbalance, we could move one of the positions. Now the important thing I would say is, if you've got all your heads out of alignment for any reason, and I don't know why you would, but they could be out very slightly for some reason, you would never start on lane 1. We never ever start with lane 1. We would always make sure that lane 2 is our reference lane. Lane 1 we would adjust to match lane 2. We then adjust lane 3 to lane 2 and lane 4 to lane 3. But if you start at lane 1 and you've got an imbalance, you may run out of adjustment by the time you get to lane 4. So you always leave lane 2 in the exact same place, and you adjust lane 1, lane 2, lane 3 or lane 4 to get them lined up. The other thing that we can see down here in the images is we can see how well it's working and if there's any dust or muck, and we can see here there's nothing really. You will notice a very faint line here and a faint line here, and there's to a certain extent the same one here. That's what we call a head drop off, and I'm telling you about it because there's often a slight faintness at the very end of the thermal head, and that's something to be aware of if you're doing very fine halftones and stuff like that, that you might get this little item creeping in. So our heads are all completely fine, we don't need to adjust them, but what we'll do is we'll stop and we'll go to the menu on the machine and I'll show you how to adjust them, but we're not going to actually adjust ours because they're fine. So we've come to the machine, we go on offline, we hit enter, and we go down, speed, overlap, hold on, online, settings, reprint, adjustment, enter. There we've got our X position showing up on here, so again we just hit enter. And then it's saying, do you want to adjust lane 1? Oh, hold on. So we've gone into lane 1, and we can just go up and down to increase it up or down by 1 or 2 points. And what you would do is you would just do an adjustment and then you would burn another master so as you know what's going on. You don't just do them all at once, you would kind of do one, then test it, print another more thermal head. When you've finished with that, you just do enter, and then you're back and you can do lane 1, lane 4, lane 3, lane 2. So you adjust each of them individually, and this is for the Y coordinates. If you want to do the X coordinates, you would just go back, hit your adjustments, and you can go X, hold on a wee second, lane 3, lane 4, Y. Oh, there we go, sorry. So you've got your X first, lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, lane 4 with X. Then you've got your Y, 1, 2, 3, 4, then you've got back to X again. So these are the different adjustments, so you can adjust this way and this way, and once you get to whichever one you want to adjust, you go enter, and then it gives you the option to move things up or down. So it's all quite easy, and it's a customer adjustment. So that's ideal. The one thing I would say is our machine is moving about here on this table. You want, where possible, to have your machine on a very rigid table. It just saves any imbalance or things moving around. So I think that's about that just now. Okay, so we've shown you the very basics setup of this machine, which are pretty easy. They're quite a solid state machine, they don't really have any problems with them, they're not difficult. Once we're up and running, that's fine. The other parts we need to talk about or look at is your artwork, and some of that you really just need to get the hang of it and understand how the machine works and how you set your own artwork up. For that we can do some other bits and pieces, but your user manual is there. There's troubleshooting, there's settings and all the rest of it that's in here, and they're very, very simple to operate.